Hello, I'm Maxim Couillard from the University at Albany, and today I will be presenting on ozone research in the New York City metro area. The Long Island Sound Tropospheric Ozone Study is a multi-agency collaboration focusing on the Long Island Sound and the surrounding coastlines that continue to suffer from poor air quality. Our most recent paper is an overview and case study report on 2 summers of measurements. Ground-level ozone pollution is a persistent health threat in densely populated urban coastal regions. Ozone increases the risk of a plethora of heart and lung issues. Ozone formation is a complex chemical process. It is a secondary pollutant formed when precursor emissions are transformed in the presence of sunlight and water vapor. With the health implications and complicated formation, ground-level ozone is clearly something that needs to be studied. The vast majority of ozone in our atmosphere is located in the stratosphere. This blocks the view of satellites from being able to see ground-level pollution. This study used a host of data sources from planes, vans, LIDARs, to balloon launches. Attaching ozone sensors to balloons is the best way to obtain measurements of ozone in the lower atmosphere. Here are photos of the 2018 and 19 field campaigns. And there's me. We launched 26 balloon-based ozone sondes from the north shore of central Long Island in the summers of 2018 and 2019 as a part of the Long Island Sound Tropospheric Ozone Study. We focused on the lowest 2 kilometers of the atmosphere within the boundary layer, where the complex environment is subject to small-scale, local effects. For perspective, here is the EPA ozone standard. Above this, we are measuring unhealthy levels of ozone. The 2018 launches occurred right on the Long Island Sound at the Flax Pond DEC, and the 2019 launches were at Stony Brook University. There were no significant climatological factors during the 2 summers. Before diving into the 3 case studies, I want to quickly go over the air quality index. The values don't exactly correspond with ozone concentration, but they provide a simple scale for public warning. Here are the accompanying ozone concentrations, and we can see the EPA 8-hour ozone standard of 70 parts per billion, which was set in 2015. Above this concentration, an area will be deemed USG, or unhealthy for sensitive groups. Now on to the case studies. The synoptic conditions for June 18, 2018 were fairly benign, with a broad high in the southeast US and no fronts within hundreds of kilometers. The AQI map shows a narrow strip of orange USG from Maryland to Massachusetts. Our Long Island afternoon launch on the right captured an interesting spike in concentration. Ozone is in red, blue is virtual potential temperature, and green is relative humidity. The vertical profile shows moderate ground-level ozone in the shallow boundary layer and a peak of over 110 parts per billion, 800 meters above the ground. On the left, we ran a high-split back trajectory model, and it indicated that the air originated from the Chesapeake Bay near ground level, as can be seen by the red tracer line. We believe the ozone transport to be caused by a low-level jet. There was a stable layer above the boundary layer that was isolated from surface friction, resulting in a jet of over 30-knot winds. We used the New York State Mesonet LiDAR, which is similar to radar but uses lasers to discern wind direction and speed. These are plots of 0 to 24 UTC on the x-axis. The y-axis is from the surface to 2.5 kilometers. The wind barbs and color fill indicate wind speed and direction. This allowed us to conclude that the pollutants were transported from the Chesapeake Bay area by a low-level nocturnal jet. Our second case on July 1st and 2nd, 2018 featured high ozone concentrations reaching the surface. The main synoptic feature was a 1020 millibar high over West Virginia. The yearly temperature record of 35 Celsius was recorded on July 1st by the Islip Weather Service, and the 8-hour ozone maximum of 115 parts per billion in Rockland County was set on July 2nd, where you can see the air quality index of purple, or very unhealthy air. The Long Island launch site was not directly at the ozone maximum, but we were still able to capture the complex layered environment. Looking at the LiDAR plots, we can see a strong northwesterly wind on June 30th and July 1st, which gave way to 24 hours of stagnant conditions. This is our sounding from the afternoon of June 30th prior to the event. Make note of the surface temperature inversion, variations in ozone concentration, and the large vertical variation in humidity. There were 6 ozone sonde launches throughout the multi-day event. The blue virtual potential temperature curve indicates a strong surface temperature inversion on both mornings. This led to stability near the surface, trapping pollutants. Focusing on the red ozone curve, we can see a maxima develop around a kilometer above the surface. Unlike the previous case, the ozone mixed down to the surface. Looking at the July 2nd 17Z launch, we can explore where this ozone maxima came from. The sonde was launched just after the 24 hours of calm and stagnant winds. The ozone maximum observed at 1200 meters was set as a starting point in a back trajectory model to see where the air originated from. It came from Long Island. This trajectory depicts that the air was over land 24 hours earlier, then it vected out to sea by a nighttime land breeze. We can see the vertical motion in the model as the parcel crosses into the Atlantic. The stagnant winds allowed the parcel to stay offshore overnight and into the morning of July 2nd. The shallow boundary layer over the ocean enhanced ozone production and concentration, basically allowing the pollutants to cook in the Atlantic. In the afternoon, a weak southerly sea breeze became the dominant circulation. This can be seen in the LiDAR plot on the bottom right. The back trajectory indicates the parcel sharply increased in height upon returning to land, additional evidence of the sea breeze circulation. After a multi-day stagnation event, the 1200-meter parcel, originally with an ozone concentration of 50 ppb, returned to Long Island with an ozone concentration of well over 100 parts per billion. The third and final case study featured ozone maxima over the Long Island Sound and southern Connecticut. The synoptic conditions were a broad 1020 millibar high pressure centered over West Virginia. The 3 launches depict strong mixing, raising the boundary layer to 2 kilometers on both days, as is indicated by the virtual potential temperature and dew point curves. Surface ozone surpassed 80 parts per billion. During the 2019 season, there were also University of Maryland flights that coincided with our launches. In red, we have the ozone measurements from our balloon launch, and in blue and magenta, we have ozone from when the plane performed spirals in proximity to the launch site. There are surprisingly stark differences between the upward and downward spiral that occurred at virtually the same location and altitude. The spiral up had ozone concentrations over 110 ppb, and the spiral down averaged around 90. Connecting the plane and balloon data highlights the sharp horizontal and vertical gradients of ozone concentration that can occur. Ozone production remained strong for tens and even hundreds of kilometers downwind of pollution sources. The complex arrangement of land and water in the New York City metro area can create rapidly varying ozone air masses. Our results indicate that vertical layering of ozone in the lower troposphere and sharp horizontal gradients occur when there is significant wind shear in the vertical wind profile. 2 methods of wind shearing we looked at today were low-level jets and sea breeze recirculation. Our analysis indicates that a number of meteorological characteristics can combine to create what we observed. The general patterns include a high-pressure system to promote clear skies and westerly winds, high temperatures to increase ozone concentration, and stagnant or very light winds to allow for smaller local flows to dominate. Here are 2 case studies that I didn't have time to mention. July 10th featured the ozone maxima at the launch site of over 120 ppb, extending vertically from the surface to 2 kilometers. The back trajectory indicates New York City air subsided from the Sound onto central Long Island, bringing the highest concentrations down to the surface. This was part of a sea breeze circulation on the Long Island Sound side of the island. August 6th featured an ozone maxima over the Long Island Sound in southern Connecticut. A satellite photo of the day indicated sea breeze convergence with a thin strip of cumulus clouds along the major axis of Long Island. The Sound side and Atlantic side sea breezes converged, creating these clouds as well as bringing in high concentration pollutants that had been idle over the water. This study adds to the growing recognition that ozone pollution in the vicinity of urban areas near large bodies of water can be strongly influenced by the small-scale dynamics generated by the land-water interface. The study was conducted to help scientists, regulators, and policymakers understand and hopefully one day control the conditions that lead to unhealthy air over Long Island and coastal Connecticut. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and thank you to these wonderful people here. Here is a link to our data repository. Here is a link to my website, and the author contact information can be found down below.